Okay, we are now recording. So just for the sake of the recording, this is the COVID-19 just check-in, pre-roundtable meetings, and we'll go from there. So sharing my screen, one thing you should have seen by now, if you haven't already, please take a look at it. We will be sending it out. The Restart Scouting checklist just goes over safe ways to get starting. Biggest thing, safe does not equal risk-free. We do understand that there is a possibility. So if you choose to do anything in person, just, be extra cautious. The SAFE acronym, right? Supervision, assessment, fitness and skill, and equipment and environment. So again, we're not going to go through everything. I just want you to know this is a resource and we can have that. Key things to point out, carpooling is a big thing. So if you do any trips, we strongly discourage carpooling because that close proximity is really what spreads anything. Before any meetings or attending anything, you should do a pre-screen. Biggest things to keep an eye out for, list here. Fevers, 100 degrees is the threshold based on, the threshold that some thermometers are a little better than others. So 100 degrees, though, is generally your threshold there. And if you've been in known close contact with a person who has lab-confirmed COVID-19, it's important that you make the best decision and quarantine. So there we go. The other thing I wanted to talk about, Scouting Wire, the marketing webinars. National did a few webinars themselves about restarting Cub Scouting, the general national restart ones, 5 things you should be doing now, all sorts. So we'll send that out too, encourage you to take a look at that. There's videos and slide decks. So the videos are the actual Zoom webinars they did. The slide deck is just like the PowerPoint that they showed. So there we go there. Identifying a new meeting location. That is becoming a little bit of a, not an issue around council, but it is happening where some charter partners are saying, we don't want you meeting in our building, please find somewhere else. If that happens, we just need a letter, obtain written permission from the charter partner and the new location so that we know it's happening and that it's okay. And if they need a certificate of insurance or anything like that, we can do that. Please don't call us Monday morning and say, hey, I need a certificate of insurance for tonight. Although we can get them out that quickly, our timeline is 2 weeks that we ask for just in case. Now, if it's just a spur of the moment thing and it happens, it does, but give us a little bit of time to do that. Up next is reporting COVID exposure to BSA and charter partners. I'm going to kick it over to Mr. Brian to talk about this. Brian Beto.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks, Cole. Appreciate that. So over the past month and a half, we've had a few incidents where we've had registered scouts and/or registered adult leaders who were exposed to COVID-19. If we know, and if you know, it was a definite exposure and an exposure in close proximity that Cole had mentioned for an extended period of time, i.e., 30 minutes in an automobile with somebody, 30 minutes sitting in a small, office, those kind of spaces and things. We want you to notify the charter partner. We want you to ask your charter partner what policies, information, procedures, that they need to gather, what information they need to gather about that. And then we would also like for you to contact the council, and the council being, number one, to start with your district executive, or you can come to me with that information. And we're going to start collecting data, and we have to create an incident report that gets filed with the National BSA. So if and when there's a liability claim, insurance claim, a family were to reach out to the council and therefore the National BSA, a month later, 2 months later, a year later, we've got documentation as to what happened in that particular situation. And like any other incident report, I hope that everyone on the call as a leader is familiar with this incident report form, and also an incident report tool, which just helps you to gather the information and the data. A simple way to obtain them is to go to Google, type in Boy Scouts of America or BSA incident report, and you can pull that up. I hope that you all have hard copies of those that you take on outings and special events and trips, or even keep in the basement of the church where you're meeting, just in case somebody were to get hurt. What we want to do is we want to make sure that every family that has been exposed to somebody who thinks they were positive or was positive are notified. We want to instruct those families, those individuals, thank you, Cole, to contact their primary care physician and work with their primary care physician to determine whether they should go into self-quarantine or not, whether they should get a rapid test or not, whether they should get tested. But that's a conversation between the individual and their healthcare provider. There have been some intrepidation from individuals wanting to tell me who the person is or was that tested positive for COVID-19. And frequently I'm hearing HIPAA says I can't share, we shouldn't share that information. It is the Hawk Mountain Council's position and the BSA's position that based upon the safety of others in the unit, and also for liability documentation purposes, we do want to know where the source of the COVID-19 exposure comes from, meaning I am looking for names to be able to do that. I will never share, Jim Milham will never share that person's name with anyone other than, you know, our legal department and for insurance purposes with that. If you're not comfortable as a leader stating to families that Brian Beto Jr. has COVID-19, we can just simply say that a scout or a scout leader that attended this meeting on this night, you know, we know had a positive test 3 days after that meeting. We don't have to mention a name to the general public or to those registered in the unit. So we don't have to do that. But again, for recording purposes and documentation purposes, when this form gets sent down to Dallas, Texas to be recorded officially, I need a name and appreciate that very much. Matt in the chat had a comment and question about my my notification about HIPAA. To do that, Matt, we can talk offline with that. Again, I'm not asking you all publicly at meetings to indicate and state who those individuals are. If you are completely opposed to sharing that information with the council, then I'm going to ask you to reach out to the family involved that has had a COVID-19 positive exposure and ask them to contact us voluntarily. And I've had individuals do that as well with that. So, okay. So Matt's basically saying, yeah, there's no reason to keep that information from us. Again, it's for documentation and insurance purposes to be able to do that. So bottom line, if you do know there are positive exposures, please let Cole, David, Chaz know. They're going to work with me. Then I get to play detective. I'm going to start calling people in the unit. I'm going to start calling the leaders. I'm going to start gathering data and information, and I'm going to look for as much documentation as we can, basically who, what, when, where, and why with that. So again, if there's any questions, please reach out to me and let me know. As far as restarting, if you've got someone who is positively, you know, has a positive COVID-19 test, and that person was at a meeting, and we know we have exposure to that individual, okay, we want to shut you down for 2 weeks. We don't want you meeting in your location. We want to be more precautious than anything to be able to do that. We want to, again, you know, recommend people talk to their healthcare provider with that. If it's a possible, let's say I possibly came in contact with somebody who might have COVID-19. You kind of know how they, I don't know if you've had those rumors, you know, in your community, in your church, in your unit with that. then what we want you to do as leaders is indicate to individuals that you're going to take a week off, okay, with that. If we can confirm that it was just a whisper down the lane, and there's no positive identification, you can continue to meet to do that. But we're going to err on the side of caution with that, get you to meet virtually for a week. And again, we'll consult with your charter partner with that. So again, if you've got specific questions for me, reach out to me tomorrow, because I don't want to get into a long question and answer, because I know you guys have roundtable and things are moving forward. But again, we want to be precautious when we restart and just coordinate between the council and the charter partner. Key part is make sure your charter partner knows, make sure the council knows, and we want to be safe. The other thing that I want to let you know, that if you know any unit in the council that is pretty much idle because they're no longer able to meet in person, as a council, we want to assist those units. We want to help them either find a neighboring unit to where the kids can join in virtually, or if we as a council need to create a virtual unit where we would help to coordinate meetings, we want to do that. We just want to make sure that kids and families stay active if they want to be active, even though the troop pack or the crew may not be as active as what they want to be with that. And then lastly, Cole, I'm going to jump ahead real quick. If you're not aware, the Hawk Mountain Council Board of Directors has voted that all charters in 2021 are due the last day in February. Okay, we're modifying the national BSA's mandate that our charters are due on March 31st. I will tell you that the last couple of years we've had too many charters come in way too late and become separated units, and we run elevated liability risk when that happens. So the board's taken action this year. So we've got 60 days to get those charters done. 60 days begins on January 1st when the online system opens up. And at roundtables, I hope you'll talk about when that information will be put out. But again, charters are due in 2021 on the last day of February, on February 28th. So Cole, back to you. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. So we have 4 minutes for 2 5-minute presentations. So I'm just going to ask that Mr. Lafko and Mr. Brady, 2 minutes each. Are you good with that? All right.
Ready, set, go.
That's right. Mr. Brady, go for it. There you go.
I had to unmute the computer. Yes, I'm David Brady. I'm the Scoutmaster of 545 in Boyertown, Frontier District. We've been actually, we just started going back to virtual meetings about a few weeks ago. We were virtual from April up until beginning of August, and then from August to mid-November, we were doing virtual. Our virtual meetings were actually, we came a week beforehand and we placed everything out. We usually meet outside. It was good weather, so we met outside. We had all the scouts, boys and girls, meet 6 feet apart from each other, arm's length. We had in the parking lot, because the parking spaces were perfect for us. We put out our water jugs for actual patrol. So each patrol member stood at the water jug and 6 feet back, which covered that. Everyone had masks on, and we didn't share anything. For parent rules, if your scout came to a meeting, a parent must be there. If there was a parent that had one in Cubs and one in the troop, that was okay. We were allowing that because we have some parents that have multiples in both sides. However, if your child decided to come to the troop meeting and they were not, and the parent did not stay, the scout could not stay. There was no buddy system. The scout's buddy system was their parent. Bathroom rules to go inside the church were you had to let the scoutmaster know or another leader, and the parent went with you, and that's how everything progressed. We have done camping trips like that. Our last camping trip was in November, and the boys seemed to kind of work well. The girls also, everything worked well. So we've been doing that for a while. We just came back into virtual. About 2 weeks ago, our committee chairman said that he wanted to go back to virtual because everything was rising. We're going to be staying that way at least until probably the 11th of January, because we want to prep for Winterfest for 1 week. So we're going to meet on virtual. The attendance virtually, it goes up and down. It depends what's going on. Virtually what we do is, instead of an hour-and-a-half meeting, we had an hour meeting, about 15 minutes of opening announcements. If anybody's working on anything, if anybody has any questions, if they're working on scout skills or merit badges, rank, stuff like that. And then our senior patroller decided that way back when he wanted to do a Cahoots game. So if you're not familiar with Cahoots, apparently the scouts would know. They would use them for like cooking merit badge. So they would have a Kahoot game for cooking or first aid, fire building, fire skill, stuff like that. And actually the scouts always seemed to work well because it was a competition of who got first place, who knew the most information. We even had the leaders join in on it. And whenever we do a Cahoots game, it's usually a huge success. And then about 10 minutes before the end of the meeting, we kind of close down if anybody has questions, do Scoutmaster Minute, and then by 8 o'clock, we kind of part ways. That's kind of everything in the span of probably 2.5, 3 minutes. So thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Brady. On to Mr. Lafko, about the same amount of time, and then we'll let you all get on to your roundtables.
I will do my best. I don't know I can do as well as Mr. Brady, but I'm David Lafko. I'm with PAC 624. We're in Orrigsburg, Pennsylvania here. So when we went back in March, we went virtual, obviously, like all of us, and we utilized Zoom very heavily in that endeavor. We created one free Zoom account. We have a PAC email address through Gmail that we use that email address for anything that we have to sign up for. So Zoom, Sign Up Geniuses, and all of that to help keep everything in one place. We're in the process of purchasing actually a Zoom license right now. And the way we've worked it out is every den has a specific time slot on a Sunday that they meet currently. So we don't all meet as one big group, we meet as individual dens. So within that, we've established a Zoom schedule as well. So our Weeblo ones meet from 2 to 3. Our Lions and Tigers meet from 3:05 to 4:05. Our Wolves will meet from 4:10 to 5:10, and our Weeblos too, actually, right now are meeting on a Tuesday. And the reason we did that was instead of having to pay $147 a year for Zoom for 7 licenses, we are going to purchase one under our PAC email and then give that 5-minute differential so one leader can log off and give time for the other leader to actually log in. So that way it saves us money. I have also reached out to Jim Milham with Hawk Mountain Council, the executive director, because Zoom does a $90 per year license, and they call it an educational license. But the kicker is you have to purchase 20 licenses in order to do that. So I'm waiting to get a hold of Zoom themselves to find out if scouting would qualify under that educational platform. And then Mr. Milham had said if we do, he would be willing to purchase those licenses and then allow the PACs or the troops to actually rebuy them from council. So we could all get our own license, but we'd only have to pay the $90 a year instead of the $147. So to make it a little bit cheaper. But just to give you a little quick on how Zoom went for us, we did not do a PAC meeting on Zoom. Last year we had 50 boys plus adults times leaders. So, you know, it would have been like 70 some people on Zoom, and we felt that was just too much. But we did run our den meetings on Zoom, and that seemed to be very successful. Obviously you can't go on a hike, but my son was in Tigers last year, and so like we had to do the skits. So we did a couple of skits online on Zoom. We had to do magic show. We had to do sign language for one of our badges. So the boys individually, as we were all there together on Zoom, but individually with their parents, they all did their skits and their different functions. And it seemed to work out really well. Now we're in Schuylkill County, and our area has been somewhat low COVID compared to others. So we have been meeting in person since August. We meet our PAC meetings outside. Our den meetings are inside, but we have enough space where we can distance. some things that we've created, and if anybody's interested, I'll post my email address, but we created a COVID policy. So we have, separate from Boy Scouts and BSA, we have an actual COVID policy that talks about what parents need to be doing, when they should and shouldn't come to scouting events. And both myself as the committee chair and our Scoutmaster have signed those. We also have a COVID waiver. In order for you to participate in anything with our PAC, you have to sign a waiver of liability. Now, some lawyers will tell you that's as good as the paper it's signed on. Others will say it means something, but we did it just as an extra step that a parent can't say they don't understand the risks of coming. Obviously, we're doing the masks. We have hand sanitizer at every event. You know, we have all of those things in place. These things were just kind of some extras that we wanted to put in place, because what I said to my committee is I don't want to be the Boy Scout PAC on the TV that says PAC 624 Orangeburg has 15 COVID cases. No, thank you. Don't want to be there. One of the things I heard Mr. Beto talk about was notifications. And Cole, cut me off when you need to, but our school districts, I'd say 99% of our scouts are in school. We have a couple of 5-year-olds that did not join school this year that were kindergarten eligible, but they didn't go because of COVID. So most of our kids are in school. So what actually happens, we had one COVID scare. It ended up not being COVID, and this was very early on. But we actually coordinated directly with the school nurse. So in our school district, our one school nurse is kind of considered the subject matter expert on COVID for our entire district. And so we actually coordinated with her, and through that, she coordinates with the Department of Health related to quarantine issues. So when these two boys, they were in the same family, but when they had a great aunt that had COVID, she actually worked with us and the parents to determine, did anybody need to quarantine? And if they did, how did that affect other people that were at the PAC? From that, we realized we need to do a sign-in sheet. So we now have a sign-in sheet at all of our things, exactly where the kid was sitting, and then the leaders take a mental note of kind of who was sitting around them. Since it's a den, we kind of all consistently sit together, you know, in a big circle. But even though you're trying to socially distance and you're wearing your mask and everything, what we learned is when we do contact tracing, they still want to know who was in the room, regardless of how far apart they were. So really quickly, that's some of the things we've done. I would encourage anybody, if you're concerned about Zoom because you're not very technologically savvy, Zoom is easy. It is a point and click operation that, you know, my 75-year-old mother has been able to figure out when she does her church group. And she's been playing videos on there and everything. So she's been doing really well with it. So if she can figure it out, and up until she used Zoom, she had trouble getting her email off the computer. We all can figure it out. And, you know, I think the going virtual or not virtual is really a personal choice with a PAC. My committee, I've said to my committee, I've grown my committee to about 18 people now. And I've said to my committee, I'm not comfortable making these decisions myself. So we have a PAC Christmas party coming up, and unless the governor tells us we can't meet, we're planning on doing that in person. But the PAC committee met and made that decision collectively, and we've actually formulated some ideas. So we're going to have like a fire pit outside. You know, we'll have like one den of 5 or 6 kids go out and make s'mores while one den goes in and meets Santa, and then they kind of all rotate through a bunch of different stations, both inside and outside the building, to try and make it work for us. I don't know how well I did there, Cole, but
you did great, sir. Yeah, thanks.
Really, Zoom is great. If anybody's interested in any of the documents we've created, let me know. I'll post my email here. Feel free to email. I'm happy to share anything. And I guess just one last thing, Cole, if you don't mind, scout books. If anybody isn't using scout books as the way to communicate with their PACs or troops, I would highly recommend it. We do everything now in scout books. As I send text messages, I send emails. we keep track of all our advancement, all our meetings, our calendars. We are using it as the one-stop shop, and
Hey, Dave,
it has.
I gotta cut you. I'm sorry.
Oh, that's fine.
And I will endorse Scout Book every day. So talk to your DE. Eric Silva is a great resource. Andy Rimby's a great resource as well with that. And so, yeah, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Okay, so the roundtable links were sent earlier on in the chat for everybody. So we will, see you over there. We'll send out Mr. Lafko's information for you. And thank you all for coming.